think the whole scene has moved a lot into more event kind of character, at least in my surrounding. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of really cool underground clubs that I don't even have heard of, here in Berlin or wherever in the world, because I'm too old for that, or I'm too posh in my scene or whatever. At least I hope that it's time to, to discover again the quality of a dark club night.
This is Music Not Diving with Scuba.
Welcome to the show. I'm Scuba. This is Music Not Diving. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started this week. You may be aware that I'm doing a monthly radio show on the awesome Swoo FM, which is part of the Rinse FM empire. I've been doing it for a few years, but we've relaunched it this month as the Not a Diving Club. So playing music in the first hour of each show relating to the podcast. So on the show that aired on Saturday night, we played a little hardcore relating to the Slipmat episode last week. And in the second hour of the show each month, I basically do a DJ mix of whatever I'm feeling that particular month. So if you want to listen back to it, it is available on demand. Like I said, it's on Swoo FM, second Saturday of the month at 9 p.m. UK, airing live. But of course, you can listen back to it on demand. So there's a link in the show notes. Head over to it and check it out. Okay, down to the real business of the podcast this week. We are welcoming Frank Wiedemann to the show. This was filmed in Berlin, and Frank is an absolutely key figure in the development of Berlin house music, electronic music generally speaking, but I think Berlin in particular. Half of ARM, of course, part of the Innervisions label, and the Dixon ARM access has been absolutely crucial, to the development of house music overall over the year, but synonymous with Berlin, I think, and the Berlin house sound as it has developed over the past 2 decades. Frank is a brilliant producer, of course, but also someone who talks really intelligently about music too. So this is a great conversation, absolutely perfect for Music Not Diving, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's just get into it, shall we? Without further delay, my conversation with ARM's Frank Wiedemann. Frank Wiedemann, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing?
I just got back from a little flu, but it's going to be okay. It's the typical Berlin end of the winter, I hope so, end of the winter time, or midwinter flu.
Yeah, we are in Berlin. This is the first time actually that we're recording in Berlin. Let's start with that actually. What's your observations about the scene? And this is a kind of favorite topic of the podcast actually, like the state of the scene in Berlin.
State of the scene in Berlin.
Like, how would you define it?
So my point of view here is that because everybody's like crying that the clubs are dying in Berlin and the scene is dying, and I don't think so at all. I think it's renewing. And you have to have in mind that like a lot of the clubs here, like Watergate, RIP, Berghain, Tresor, whatever, they're here for like 20 years, most of them, or longer. Hence, the people running the clubs are also doing this for a very long time. And I don't want to say they get bored, but, maybe after a while it's like also okay to do a change, like do something else for yourself or let other people step in.
Yeah, a fresh injection
have their new idea of what, what does clubbing mean like in 2026. And I see a lot of potential to, do things a bit more clubby again, less eventy, I might say that. And I think, coming back to Berlin, I think there's so much potential in the city. And if I compare it to any other city in the world that I go, there's maybe only London that has a similar amount of clubs that I would actually like to play or be. And that's still quite unique in the world. So I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid that it will die here or that something will be. It's just renewing. It's like, and last word maybe. I think all of these cultural hubs, centers, they, in my opinion, they have like a, like a up time where they like everybody moves there. Everybody's like inhaling the fresh air that's happening there and adds something to it. And then there's a time where where the air is sucked up and you don't know what to do, and new people have to step in. And I saw this with New York, I saw this with London, I saw this with Paris, whatever. it's everywhere the same. So I think Berlin had like an incredible up since the 90s, and now it's just like a bit sleepy and renewing and finding new ways, and I think that's quite normal and nothing bad about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, clearly there's always going to be an element of churn over time when you talk about multiple decades, right? Because I mean that's what it is. And like you say, you know, I mean, it's not just people get bored, people get older, you know, and clubs should be not exclusively, but it should be a place for young people to have a good time, right? I mean, that's not to say that old people shouldn't be allowed in, but like, I mean,
absolutely
that's well, yeah, hopefully not. I mean, but that's the life part of it. I mean, an interesting observation that we had on the show quite recently from Kazim at RA was that, you know, his observation was that Berlin's become much more of in musical terms, a much more of a multicultural place. Yeah. And, you know, musically and in terms of the crowd and in terms of everything that goes on culturally in the city is much broader in cultural terms,
which is a good thing, no?
Absolutely is a good thing. I mean, and that was always the difference, I think, between Berlin and London as two amazing music cities. London, obviously, with the history, influence of sound system culture and all the rest of it. And when I moved to Berlin the first time, it was remarkable how
German it was.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I actually loved that at the time. It was a kind of it was just so different, you know. Yeah. Like, but I mean, that has been a change, hasn't it? Would you agree with that?
I would agree. It's funny enough. Yesterday I went through a couple of old Perlon records.
Oh yeah,
and I kind of like. Obviously, it's not gone, this sound, but I really like. You know, it brought me back to like 15, 20 years back. Where I was like witnessing this. I'm not like totally into the sound, but like now that I hear, I'm like, that's really, you know, was a cool area of Berlin sound for sure, I would say.
And so Berlin as well,
yeah,
right?
Totally. And I another note I also had, like, because you were talking about young people and stuff. I have to say, also yesterday somebody sent me a video of a party that happened right after COVID on the Zurich airport where I played, and because they do another one, I'm in the video, and I remembered that because I was actually not sure after COVID, you know, like having like 2 years of really young people not being able to go to clubs, how would the scene survive that, you know, like would there be, like, I mean, technically everybody who's turned 18 could have been into, I don't know, hard rock, punk, whatever, again, right, you know, like totally fine, but not into what we do. So, and I was like really had a relief that there were like a lot of people from 18 to 25 at the party and they danced their ass off. So I had a nice flashback yesterday that it's, you know, we should never take for granted that the scene that we're in and that we love will survive into another generations, you know. So, and that's what I see here in Berlin too, to come back to Berlin, that there's still like very young people going out in the places that I also go. Yeah. Which I really enjoy, and I'm happy that it's happening, you know, like.
I mean, this is a common observation people make, is that some people that complain perhaps that, you know, the young people, the younger cohort of the current audience have different expectations.
That's for sure, yeah.
And behave in different ways. And the common hypothesis is that, you know, because they missed that 2-year period, they weren't kind of shown what to do in a way, which is, I mean, I think it's easy to caricature this kind of thing, but there's something in it.
Well, I think, I mean, first of all, I think they learn quick. When you're that young, you learn really quick, and you see what you like and what you don't like. Thing is, though, as I spoke earlier, I think the whole scene has moved a lot into more event kind of character, at least in my surrounding. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of really cool underground clubs that I don't even have heard of, you know, here in Berlin or wherever in the world, because I'm too old for that, or I'm too posh in my scene or whatever. But I think it's like, it's maybe, at least I hope that it's time to, you know, like to discover again the quality of a dark club night with not a big stage and obviously no phones. We know all about that already, I think, or we talked about it enough. and just get lost in there and not, like not go to a show basically. And I'm saying this by earning quite good money from these shows, obviously. So I think there has to be like probably a kind of middle way. But at the moment, I think the weight is absolutely upon like mostly at the event side and not so much at the club side. And I think it's a time maybe for us to like to show that younger generation what clubs actually mean if they don't find out by themselves. I'm pretty sure they find out by themselves, by the way.
I mean, this is a question actually that's come up on the show more than once. To what extent is it incumbent upon acts with a following to play in small venues? Like to take the hit financially and to say, well, say for 10 or however many shows a year, I'm going to play this, 200 cap club or whatever it is.
I mean, I can only say for myself, I couldn't live without it. Like I do this since many years, or actually since ever. Like there's a couple of clubs in the world where I really love to play, and whatever new club that pops up, and I get to know it. Like I'm like, okay, if everybody, like a lot of people tell me, hey, this is really amazing, you should play there. I'm really happy to play there for a small fee because, I think that's the basis of our scene, always been. And
it's the natural habitat for the music.
It is. And it feels so good to play there, and it's so much joy most of the time. It's like that's how it should be, and the event should be, in my perspective, the cherry on the cake, but it's more at the moment. And again, I know I'll make a good living out of that, but yeah.
Is it morally incumbent though? If I can pin you down on this, is it morally incumbent in your opinion for acts with a, if you're successful, should you kind of give back, as it were? Do you think it's fair to expect
that's the tricky
people
part,
to do that?
It's like I ask this question myself, like should I, like the thing is though, if I would say today I only play small clubs, could I sustain my career? Or is it part of the journey at the moment to be present on really big stages? And that's how I see it at the moment. Like, I'm as much as I can, I'm trying to promote the small clubs I love to play in. But I know at the moment that I have to kind of like be present on bigger stages, be visually present. I think that's the main aspect of this.
Yes.
So you have and I'm not really good at doing a show basically. I don't, I have not a signature move, maybe a weird dance, but that's it. And also because when you play, I only play live, so you have, like I don't have time for like weird poses. I have to do the job. I need my hands. Maybe I should think about a foot choreography or something. I don't know. So yeah, I think it's both at the moment, and I also enjoy playing on the big stage. It's not a thing, Like
absolutely. I'm not suggesting that someone has to choose between the two.
No. Yeah. It's just like I think. What I see as my job is still playing the small clubs if they allow me. Like they could also say like you're too posh for us. If they allow me, and I'm happy to be there because I love it and promote these places, for sure.
Yeah. The previous conversation I had on today, which actually I think is going to be going out after this, so I won't say who it was, but we talked about these big events, and in particular the big anima events at the Sphere and at the Pyramids and all that kind of thing. And it has given the impression that perhaps we've reached, peak event, perhaps. But I mean, you've obviously there's a new, I think I'm allowed to say this, there's a new record coming, and there's going to be a tour. So when you're thinking, when you're playing this stuff live, and as you're planning the new record and planning how you're going to communicate it in the live arena, what is your, I don't know how far you got down the road and actually planning this, but what's your instinct in how to put this on stages? Like how much is, as you mentioned, it's you
drilling some buttons, but obviously there's got to be a little bit more than that, probably. How much is the production coming into the conversations? How much are you planning that now? Are you going to do a thing at the Sphere with loads of,
Well, obviously,
visuals?
I mean, Matteo, and I really have a lot of respect for him in this. He really peaked it, I think. So there's no way, and also neither financially nor successfully to get any way in that place. And I also don't want it. And the main reason for that is that I always my constant dilemma is that I love club music and I love the club scenery where you actually don't look at the DJ, but you just get lost for yourself and dance. At the same time, when I play, I kind of feel like I'm a musician. I do a concert, so I want people to recognize that.
Right.
So
okay.
that's my
Yes.
paradox all the time. But that's the reason why I'm doing like this new show in quotes. So what's for me, what it's about is like really it should be music orientated because I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I will always have like one or two guests on stage, singers, mostly to be with me on stage, and maybe in the future I'm thinking of having another musician. Like not like a rock band, but maybe something more like some other synth operators or something like this. I could imagine, I really want to concentrate on the musical experience, rather than the visual experience. But knowing what time we're living in, there has to be something. And this year we're trying out, like, I don't want to do like, like, bam, this is my new show. I'd rather go from, okay, let's grow this naturally from where I'm at, and see how far we can take this, I have a lot of ideas where this could be. And like ultimately I'm not the youngest person anymore, even if I behave.
You're looking pretty good. You're looking pretty good, Frank.
No.
You've been watching this episode for about 15 minutes now, so well done for sticking around so long. I'm just going to take this opportunity to remind you about the ways you can support us on the podcast. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Scuba official. There are two very reasonably priced tiers there, the more expensive of which is just $10 a month and gets you all of the music that we release on Hot Flush Recordings and affiliated labels in high quality download formats ahead of the release date. That's pretty great, isn't it? You can also hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section telling us how much you like it, how much you're enjoying this episode. That'd be great too. And that's about it, isn't it, really? I'll let you get back to the episode. Thank you.
And, I love being in clubs, but I don't want to rely on that in like, let's say 10, 15 years.
Sure.
But I still love playing music, so I see myself rather in like 10 years to be on a stage and be done at 11 o'clock, and go home, have a tour once a year or something like this,
That sounds nice, doesn't it? Yeah.
So, and that's where I'm working on. But maybe let's see, maybe after this year I'm like, oh, it's all bullshit. I go back to clubs. I don't know. But I'm very curious at the moment to grow this and have like people with me on stage, because it's really fun to play with other people. I just recently had a Howling show again with Rai in Tulum.
Okay.
And we both enjoyed it so much that this might be also a restart. I don't know, it felt really good. And it just feels good to be with other people on stage. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of weeks ago on the show, we had Sister Bliss from Faithless.
Mm-hmm.
And Faithless was always a big multi-person live band. They always had a live drummer.
Yeah.
Like it was always
Never saw it live, but I saw
videos.
Yeah,
Right. And they had a couple of live albums as well. And it got me thinking, and I've thought about this a lot, like the best way to reproduce electronic records live, and to try and do it in a way which is, I suppose, true to, what we just said, like the natural habitat for the music, which is being played off vinyl in a dark room where you can't even see the DJ, right? But trying to do that in a way which is, I suppose, true to live music more generally.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how do you think about that, and how have you approached that over time?
Also, it really depends on the project. I think with Howling, for instance, we had Jens Koros with us, who's a drummer and keyboard player at the same time. So he could play some, like he played some pads, which gives it a natural feel. He played some cymbals and he played some piano, but never too much. And for that project, I think that was really cool, like having the dynamic of a real drummer, but with electronic sounds. But I don't see this actually with the Arm Show. I think more of in a Kraftwerk kind of way, or Jean-Michel Jarre, maybe not musically, but like from the way of presentation. Not the laser harp, but like bring a couple of like nice old synths or something like this. I see this more and more happening. Like Kölsch, for instance, he's doing this Kölsch in the Machine project with like crazy modular system. Soulwax always did it. Like if I see Underworld, I saw lately again. Maybe it's not a lot of synths, but it's like
I always thought that looked so cool. Because it had a big desk on the stage,
so
right?
And energy between those two.
Managed to make twiddling nogs on stage look cool, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty difficult thing to do.
I was I never really watched long boiler room sets, but that was I just got stuck.
Yeah,
it was so fun. See, the energy between them two was so good, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's the thing, having somebody else on stage, it's an energy. It's if you do a jam, like I did a lot of jams the last couple of years with Matthew Johnson or with Sebastian Mullaert or Henrik Schwartz.
Yeah, I've got that on the list of questions to talk about. But yeah, absolutely.
It's always like that's a certain spark you have together, or you don't. So could also happen, but mostly it happens, and it's just giving something to the audience that I think in the normal club, that's a difference from a live act or a DJ. I think like DJs getting like I think in my opinion they make the magic happens in their mix, obviously, and how they like react to the audience and how they get this together, the energy together with the dancers, and live, especially when you improvise, it's always like I had this talk once with Henrik. So the moment we search for something to happen, it's kind of like the beat only part of a DJ set. Like you have a beat running, it's like, oh, it's okay. Well, do a little dance. And then the moment, like, I don't know, one plays chords, one plays a melody and just hits together, or a bass line. And both of us feeling that this is the moment, this feeling goes absolutely over to the dancers or the audience. So like that's the magic moment that we all have together, and that's what I really love about playing with other people on stage.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, there's so many ways of doing it. It's completely subjective, I think, to the project, to what you're trying to communicate musically. I mean, I've told this story so many times on the show, but my favorite electronic live experience in the audience was watching Atom and Tobias
with the mapping stuff?
No, it was a Labyrinth Festival, and it was just them stood on stage together for 3 hours. They didn't look at each other once. They're just these two German dudes looking at it was so awesome, so powerful. But despite the fact they didn't seemingly communicate,
Atom, TM and Tobias, I thought Amon
Oh
Tobin.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's a different thing entirely. That was also absolutely awesome. I remember that. That was the first time we saw that. I was like crazy. Yeah, Atom, TM, and Tobias. Despite the fact that they weren't apparently communicating, clearly they were communicating somewhere, and you could feel it between. And like you say, it's absolutely transmitted to the audience in a way which is really tangible. And it kind of I mean, it's sort of like DJing, but not.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
Well.
It's a different way of like getting that energy together, and like I said, you get once those people on stage having that sensational moment, this totally transports to the audience always.
Yeah, absolutely. So can we talk about the new album?
Sure.
When's it out?
I don't know.
Okay.
This year.
Okay, but is it finished?
It's finished. Yeah.
Okay. So
we're mixing it at the moment, but yeah, it's finished.
This is the third Arm record, is that right?
depending
proper?
on how you count it.
Right,
So
okay.
for us, it's the second, because the first album that was out on Sonar Collective
Yes.
for us is more of a single collection from the time, because it's all the
That's
singles.
just the really early stuff. Is that
the really early stuff.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
Nia, Mifune, all this.
So the first proper one was Dreamhouse,
for us, in our feeling,
which was 2018, I believe. So
Correct.
it's a little gap as well, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about? I mean, I love talking about albums and the format, generally speaking. How do you feel about it? The putting together of a larger body of work.
I love albums. I still love listening to albums. I know that probably I'm a little bit of a dinosaur when it comes to that. But I still, like Christian and I, when we put this together, the intention is to have like a body of work, that represents a period of the time we're working together. And
does that mean, sorry if I can interrupt you, that this was written over quite a long period?
Yeah, I would say so. 2018, when Dreamhouse came out, I had to do other things. I mean, I think there was also the Howling, the second Howling record was then done after that. And singles and collaborations and stuff. And then I think during COVID, I really started to collect a lot of sketches. And so maybe roughly the way Christian and I work, it's like we figured out that it's not good if we start from scratch together in the studio, because it's a bit like the how you say, not the energy. My words. I've been too sick for a long time. So the way we communicate is not always the easiest way. We have a lot of arguments in the studio, which is okay, I guess. But to save myself, so I'm the one creating everything. Christian is more like a classical producer, if I might say.
Yep.
Which is really important, and I don't want to underestimate his role. But for somebody who's been working on this piano line for 2 hours and really loving it and just having this little flower growing, and somebody's like, oh, that's really not good. It's like it's a breakdown.
I never want to hear that.
And we had these moments quite often. So we've without speaking about it, we decided that it's better that I do first shots on my own. Also because I have spent more time in the studio than him. And then we sit together, I show him the sketches, what I have, and he's like, okay, this I like, this I connect to, this I connect to, blah, blah, blah. And also in the Dreamhouse times, we had a lot of arguments about what should be on the album, because we had only 15 songs or something. And I was like, okay, this and this has to be, and then Christian, but da-da-da. And it was almost like a compromise, the album. We both love it, don't get me wrong, but I think it was actually a compromise. This time, I was really easy to not fight for things. Because it was just a waste of time, actually. If I also in hindsight, I would probably say half of the songs on Dreamhouse should rather be solo tracks for myself, and that's what I made now. I kind of have these days. I have a couple of folders where I could put things in, and I'm totally easy with doing so. So it's if a track doesn't connect to Christian, I'm like, okay, then maybe it's solo for me, or it's something for Howling or whatever project. And whenever I also do a jam session with other people in the studio, I'm my goal is never to have okay, this has to be an EP with the two of us, or it has to work for that. It's always let's just make music first and see where we're going, and then afterwards we see where it fits. And that decision in myself made me feel so much easier about.
Yeah, I think it's so
creating.
easy to fall into the trap of basically putting something into a box before it's finished, even, or before the idea is.
And there's still, enough arguments about the song we agreed on, no doubt. But at least we don't have to fight in this ballad or whatever. That's easy. So in the 2 years of COVID, I made tons of sketches. And I even have now, I think I have a solo album ready.
Okay.
Not yet ready, but like almost. So let's see what's happening after the ARM album is out. Yeah, we chose like, I don't know, like 12 of the sketches and finished them together bit by bit, invited singers here and there. And yeah, now I think we're good now. It's okay. Feels good to, like have it done. It was a long work. I think we should have been done maybe at least 1.5 years earlier. But, we both travel a lot, and then it's like, I don't know, you ask a singer and then she doesn't feel it at the end, but it takes her 4 months to say no and stuff like this. So it's like always a little bit of it's a journey, obviously. And I think all in all, it's been good that it took a long time. It's like it's saturated now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's nice to get these things out and capture a moment, and absolutely there's an argument in favor of it depending on the project. But like, taking your time and letting it breathe and, letting it come together in the, the fullness of time. So how was it split up into like songs and tunes, many songs? How were you thinking about that? Did you want to have a certain, how much of a vision, I suppose, was there at the outset? I mean, obviously you've just described a really long process,
I think it's not like that we have like a vision, okay, we want to do, it's not a concept album. The thing though we learned from Dreamhouse is that Dreamhouse was almost no club song on it, no club track. And
was that intentional?
Yeah, I think so, because we thought like, who wants to listen to a club album at home? Like we didn't want to at the time. So we're like, okay, let's, like that. There's still, I think, in my opinion, there's not many club albums that I like to listen to at home. I mean,
it's a difficult format for that music, right? Because it's, as you said before, it's like, really music made to be played on vinyl by a DJ in a dark room.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I think we're like, if there's one thing that we could be blamed for, but also maybe are not too bad at, is like doing club tracks that could be songs. So, or like we are always like in between those two zones, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where we're gone now. So it's like still songs in a way, but you can play them in a club. And also we're doing this already, like that's the good thing about the new days. You just release a track like Asa and see how it goes. And that's also part of the album, or we release like, we had like 4 songs out now from the album, and there's probably 1 or 2 more singles coming, and it's fine, like, and without having the album finished, like we released already parts of it, which I found irritating in the beginning, but I'm actually embracing this almost now, because you can still like, go like change it a little bit if you feel like, it's not like,
it's like a sort of cold open slightly, or like a bit of like on the fly market research, right?
I'm not saying this because of the market or like the response. I'm more like, you know how it is, like once you have your album done, finished and mixed, it's done, finished and mixed, like you wouldn't change anything. But if you release stuff, and it's really not about the market, it's about how you feel yourself about it.
I mean, that's sort of what I meant. It's not necessarily how it performs, but I think, I mean, certainly this is my experience anyway. When a track gets released, your relationship with it does slightly change.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
But that's I think that for that it's actually that's probably one of the only good things of Spotify.
Okay. Well, we can
debate about this for a long time.
Interrogate Spotify slightly more in a second, but like I mean, but it is interesting, isn't it, though? Because I mean, obviously that's the format of release that streaming, generally speaking, has encouraged is like, actually the album release day is almost the end of the campaign instead of the start of it. And I guess the way people interact with the music has changed slightly as a result of that too. But actually, as you say, from the producer's perspective, and obviously it helps if because this is coming out in Innervisions, is it? Yeah. So if you're deeply involved with the label as well, and you don't have some like A&R standing over you, you can be very free with it actually, and that can be as you said, it can be very useful.
And it's like, it feels like you have to do a constant flow these days of like something's always pouring out of your studio.
Right. It has to seem like that anyway.
I almost see Spotify as social media these days, I think, which is actually sad, but it's, I guess.
It's funny. I was listening to an interview with Jimmy Iovine recently, and his comment on the socials aspect to his comment on streaming was that it was a massive missed opportunity not to build social media to the streaming platforms. And actually, I think part of the appeal of Bandcamp is that it does have a social aspect. So you can do recommendations, you can see what people have bought, all that sort of stuff. The big streamers are very impersonal, despite what you just said. What you said, I do agree with it. It does sort of feels like that because it feels like you have to post something on there, right? But actually, you don't get that interaction with people who are actually listening.
Not at all. Yeah.
What are your observations on interacting with fans? We're off topic slightly, but let's go down it. Your observations on interacting with people who like your audience.
Well, that happens for me on Instagram mostly, or in the clubs, obviously, if you're like talking with real people, actually, but
that was sort of what I was implying. Is it any sort of alternative or any sort of meaningful alternative on socials or on
the club? You mean?
Yeah.
The real talk should be an alternative. That's the real thing. It's not the other thing is the alternative, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's part of the, like, so in a way, I think we I don't want to talk too much about my own music.
I mean, you're here to talk about it, it's fine.
But yes and no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to praise it or something, but I guess we had some emotional tracks like Howling remix, blah, blah, blah.
Of course, some hit records.
So there's people, still people coming to me is like, we got married to that song or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And that's such a great thing, like when you get these emotions from, or you support their emotions with your music, then it means something,
Absolutely.
and if people tell you about it with maybe a tear in the eye or something, then it's quite it's heavy, in a good way.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the main thing, and then social media is the add-on because people can reach you there, which when they cannot reach you in person, which I think is fine.
Yeah. People complain about social media a lot, but I mean,
that's a good aspect of. I think that's the actual aspect of it. It's not like shouldn't be like making advertisement and blah blah blah. It's like about communication in a way, I think.
Absolutely. And from a musician's perspective, the big advantage of social media actually is that you have control of what you're saying in a way which is not quite true prior to social media, where you had to wait for, I've said this many times on the show, where you had to wait for interview day. You do 10 interviews, you're misquoted in every one of them. You sound
All of them.
you sound like a dickhead. Yeah, exactly.
Good thing about podcasts also, by the way.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. So, yeah. I mean, these things are, I think, underappreciated, I think, generally speaking, by musicians, generally speaking. And maybe people generally. I mean,
you mean that new reality with social media?
Yeah, the ability to, I think, accurately communicate.
Yeah.
In a way that you do through your music, because it's your music that just goes out there. It's like people can take from what they want. But spoken communication.
Yeah, it's true. I never thought about it, but
to
it's actually true.
Support that. I mean, obviously, different people have approached that in different ways over years. Obviously, some people don't do any interviews. I think that's difficult to do in today's landscape.
Yeah.
Like for someone coming through, you're really, I think, rewarded for being more visible, like you said, but also more, I think vocal in terms of communicating what you have to say more than just through music, which is perhaps a shame. Maybe. I don't know. How do you think about that? I mean, have you always done a lot of interviews? Going back to the start? Did you ever have a kind of view on perhaps saying too much, for example?
Well, I tend to sometimes speak maybe a bit too open-minded, which then has a drawback sometimes here and there. But I don't see the point in being too political and not like politically correct. I mean,
yeah, right, yeah.
So it's, I think, but I would say in like it's mediocre the amount of interviews Christian I do. We're not doing too many, but also not. It's not that we're like a mysterious two people that never speak about their work.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I actually, I like that also sometimes. Like if you have a good chat, like then like we do, then it's like it's also learning for me. Like to, like you said about having social media as a real. I never thought about it, so it's a good aspect.
Yeah, right. Let's go back to the start. You're not from Berlin, are you?
No.
Southwest
Germany. It's a town called Karlsruhe.
Yeah, right.
You heard of it?
I have heard of it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah?
I've not been there.
It has actually. It has a very good. I mean, it's. I probably would never move back there, but it's like I had a good time, and it has a very interesting museum there. It's ZKM, it's a museum for media. Basically, like I think they have the biggest video art or media art collection in the world.
Huh.
And it's been like until 1 or 2 years been curated by Peter Weibel, who's been like, he's been doing this so good. I think I'm not sure how it changes now with the new curator because he unfortunately passed away, but it's been like, that's really a big thing in my hometown, I would say.
And what were your first experiences playing music? Did you learn instruments as a kid? And that's
I learned playing piano, and played in bands when I was like 12, 13 or something.
Okay.
School bands, and then I think when I was like, must have been like shortly after 18, 19 that I started. So my father always had like synthesizers at home, not many, but he was totally into this. He played trumpet, but he was into that kind of...
Play trumpet?
Yeah. Hobby, as a hobby.
Okay,
but, yeah. So there was always music around. My mom used to run a jazz club.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
And there were always musicians and people, so I was really surrounded by music.
Yeah.
And I can still say music is basically what surrounds me all the time. Like still, it's my life. And at one point, I think when I was like after like, in Germany, you do like a civil service instead of army, or you could at the time.
Right.
And after that, I really got into electronic music and seeing, like, was more like the trip hop and drum and bass kind of things. Like,
so was that early 90s kind of?
Yeah, like 93, 94 or something like that. And started playing on like art school parties and stuff like this.
DJing.
Yeah. And then also met people who wanted to produce with me, so I started more like on a jazzy side first, and then met Christian at one point, and he was also my record dealer. So
really?
He
was working in the record shop?
Yeah, he first worked in one, and then he had his own record shop.
Okay.
And he kind of really like convinced me about house music. Before that, I wasn't really, I liked like 1 or 2 tunes per night, and then like going back to more broken beat stuff. And then I remember clearly, like there was the first, I think the day I really got it was like one of the very the club Robert Johnson, Frankfurt, one of the very early nights there when they just opened. We drove up there because like 1 hour from Karlsruhe, and there was Needs playing, Needs night. Needs is like, you remember Needs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yannick and Lars and Marek. And it was the first time I heard, like, I think I had a whole night just deep house, basically, in a surrounding, like, Robert Johnson, perfect sound at the time. Same venue. Yeah, still is. And I was just like, it's not only, at the time, I also played some tracks in a more commercial club context, which was like Alcatraz and Armand van Helden, all that stuff. Nothing against it, in hindsight, but it didn't have a musical impact on me. But that night in Robert Johnson was like my game changer.
Okay.
And Christian was really good at also giving me the right records at the right time. A little bit of Carcrake here, a little bit of Moody Man there, and some Isolé and whatever, whatever came up at the time. That inspired me in a good way, and
At that point, how accomplished were you as a producer, would you say? You're just messing around.
Zero.
Right, okay. But
so
you're
I
making
was
tunes.
writing songs before, and working with computers to write and stuff, and trying to, have natural sounding drums with the emo percussion or whatever it was, kind of stuff.
I remember that.
And I think it obviously all changed at the moment where I bought a sampler in a 1210.
Okay.
Which was, that was still in my school time, so I started to experiment with this. I was like 17 or something.
Which sampler was it? Do you remember?
Emu.
Yeah.
Early one.
Yeah, I had an ESI 4000, I think.
Something like this, yeah. And that was like obviously a game changer too, but I still had many years to learn how to properly use it. So it was not like, that's how it goes.
Yeah, right.
And so it took me years to understand how like sampling really works, and I still think there's many people who do it much better than I do, but I learned about it.
It's an art in itself. And, that, especially that, that era.
Sampling is such a art form,
Yeah. And so much of it, also, anyway, certainly so much of the sound anyway, and the techniques were based on the hardware itself. The S950. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago on the show with someone who's one of the early hardcore producers, Slipmat. Actually, I think this is going to be going out after that episode. And he was absolutely right there at the kind of early jungle and before that. And the S950 was like, it's
the thing.
It's the sound of it is on those records, and it's obviously quite a subtle thing, the transformers and stuff. But it's almost like, the MPC is the kind of equivalent, which I think has the same transformers, doesn't it? Akai or whatever. Yeah. I'm not an expert on all that stuff either. But it is an art in of itself.
I always I was so, what hit me the most was like there's this early, obviously everybody knows the DJ Shadow introducing stuff, which kind of like, I was like, what the f is this? Yeah. But then you remember Dr. L? There's a very, I think it wasn't Ninja Tune, it's something else, but like there's a very first record of him. It's like a three vinyl record, and for me that's like that's such a crazy art of sampling in there.
Yeah,
like I was like listening to this over and over and trying to like how it's like, okay, I need more records, so I bought more records. And I was like, how it is? But I never got, I would never consider me being like somebody like good in sampling. I use it but it's not part of how I produce.
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, so I started this probably producing, if you might say that, when I was like 16, 17, a little bit, but not being good. And then while learning about DJing and learning about this kind of music much better, because I started sampling because of hip hop, I think.
Yep.
But the whole trip hop kind of stuff, the Krundorf Master Sound, the Vienna time, all this, try to get into this, and I think I would say the first ARM record came out in 2000 or 2001.
2001, it says in my notes.
Yeah, maybe 2001. It's probably because we worked on this tune for like a year or two. That it feels earlier, but that was like, that was obviously a kind of relief to have something out, like
it's finally jumped over the hurdle, right?
And then from that on, we learned. But I wouldn't consider. I think nowadays I know roughly what I'm doing, but I still learn. So
of course,
I know so many people who I consider being much better than what I do. But yes, I know what I'm doing, kind of. But I find my way, like.
It's interesting, that thing about releasing your first record, isn't it? Because my first record came out in 2003, but I don't think I had any kind of clue
No
until probably 2008, 9, 10 maybe sort of thing. Just like really like zero knowledge going.
Totally
you kind of got a bit of an ear for it, and like, you know, you can do something which sounds okay, but like in terms of really having any sort of, even I suppose, because I mean, actually a question I ask quite often is when did you acquire confidence in yourself? Because that's a slightly different thing, right? It's like I knew I could make stuff which was okay, which was I could play, I could make a tune, and people would play it, kind of thing. And so that gives you a degree of confidence, but it took a lot longer to actually realize that I'm actually okay. It's almost like knowing what you don't know, you know? Like at the start, you're not quite sure what the depth of knowledge really is. And when it becomes apparently that is also, you know, a kind of like intimidating kind of experience. But when was there a point? Can you pinpoint a moment at which, maybe there are multiple moments, I'm not sure, but like,
I think it rather comes from the feedback you get from people, if it's personally or by having an audience being in front of you and giving you the feeling that what you do is actually touching them. So, and I still struggle. Honestly, I still struggle. Not every day, but, you know, like often enough, then like, oh, that's all bullshit I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And I think
that never goes away.
That's part of it. You know, it's fine. But obviously at one point you're like, okay, I reached this and this, and, you know, like, I don't know how many people coming to the show when I play, wherever I play, that's something that gives you the confidence to not being like completely wrong, you know, at least. And I guess that, I don't know, when it's a slow process, I think, you know. It's not like this is the day when it all changed.
Some people do have those days. It's funny.
I can tell maybe one day where I was definitely like shocked positively. So we had this night at the Royal Albert Hall in 2018 where we had the Innervisions night there.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And I was like freaking nervous. Like, I don't know for what reason, because it was just like a show, but it was in this thing, you know, in this building, and you see people of Princess Diana, you know, like walk in the backstage, being in the backstage.
Well, it was built by Queen Victoria, I believe.
Fuck, it's like, oh my God. And then I saw before I played, there was Henrik playing with Booker Wesseltoft. And I have to say about this night, I think we went in there with the idea of doing some sort of special art that works in this space that is connected to our music. While most of the audience came in there, it's like, let's have a rave in that place, finally, you know? Yeah, right. So I think the expectations were a bit different. So when so first was Markus Vogel playing an ambient set, then was Henrik with Booker playing two pianos, like no drums. Okay. And people got like slightly nervous, drinks got louder, and I felt so bad for them. It's like, oh my God. And then I was like, and I remember that like still on the day I was like not sure if the set I prepared was right, or if I should actually play a kick drum at all, or do like, you know, more ambient and music. And I'm happy I put in a kick drum because that was the relief moment for the whole party, basically.
Oh, right, everyone's like, thank yeah.
But I was like so nervous, and then Booger said, he was like, I came to them like, I'm so sorry that like it was so loud, and they were like, no, it's fine, you smash it. And I was like, if you say it, if that guy, you know, that jazz pianist genius says it to me, it's like, okay, then who am I to not do it?
Yeah.
And I think in like after the show, when I was not nervous anymore because it went well, I was like, that's quite an achievement, you know, like if you can with all your friends play this place, not many people have done it, and that's something that counts. So I don't know, like that was probably, I mean, there's many other very small places where I felt this, you know, like, but in if you ask me about this, that might be one moment when I really thought like, okay, you're okay. It's gonna, you know, okay. It's okay.
Yeah, right.
But a last word maybe, because of, you know, like we talked about how long it takes to have, you know, to learn about producing and to have the confidence. I really feel bad for a lot of people these days, if I'm honest, because most of them don't have the time somehow. It's like, you know, there's this, I don't know, role model of a producer or a DJ has to be these days. And then maybe you're lucky because you have one track that attracts somebody and it's going to be played. So immediately the whole industry is jumping on you. Yeah. It's like, we're going to make you the next blah, 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 and then you have to deliver. And if you don't deliver, you're off. You know, it's like, and it's so, I'm so thankful that I had probably you the same, had the time to play in bars for like, when it was 50 euros, it was a lot, you know, like learning 100%. About it.
Like I said, my first release in 2003, I was not ready in 2003, right?
Yeah. I think we even, like Christian and I weren't ready when Ray came out. That was 2005 or something, which yes, blew up for us. But
that was going to be my next question. Like, how much of a turning point was that for you guys?
How much what?
Of a turning point was it?
Obviously, it brought us on a much bigger map, obviously. And I think the reason why it was so successful, it was like in between all the genres, you know, like the techno guys could play it, the deep house guys would play it, even the jazzy guys kind of could play it, the minimal guys could play it, you know. It was like,
yes, minimal and maximum at the same time, right?
Yeah. So and it was just the time for it. I think, you know, it's always what it is, you know, like it's always luck also, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of success is being in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. And but you know, if you look back in hindsight, it's like we haven't done a second Ray after that. We went like completely the other way. We went like wild pitch, big time. And not because we are like planning this. And I'm not sure if we would have Ray later in our careers, if we would have done it differently. But I think it was good for us to not, you know, been too much into that box of like, that's the arm sound. But we also weren't ready for like, you know, like playing that career card or whatever you call it, you know, like we've been like, oh, there's all these Italian clubs now asking for us, like, ooh, yeah. I mean, definitely was great to have it, obviously. I wouldn't, but it was also, it came unprepared, I would say.
At what point did you start doing the live?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before that, were you...
I was DJing.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2009, we had a small tour as a critical mass, which was Dixon, Christian, Henrik, and I playing our hits at the time, basically live. And that was for me you know, I always looked up to Henrik and thought that's cool what he's doing, how he's playing it, but I never thought about doing it myself. And then when we did this tour, it's like there was kind of like the moment I was like, oh, okay, I could do this also, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And then at the beginning, I did a little bit of both for a year, like DJing and playing live. And then, you know, we figured out it's so irritating. I mean, it's still super irritating for all the people, like who's coming, Christian, Frank, what is happening live, DJ, blah, blah, blah. But at the time it was like, we felt it's good that, you know, like I just do live, he just does DJ.
And was it always going to be you who did the live?
Yeah. Always.
Yeah.
And I don't DJ anymore, except for a very late moment at the Fabric 20 years party when I was quite drunk.
Okay. Let's talk about the Circle of Life thing with Sebastian. Sebastian's been on the show before. We talked about it. And then it's a really interesting thing. Obviously, Speedy J does something sort of similar. Yeah.
We did that together, you know that?
Really?
Yeah, we did like Circle of Life and Store together.
Is that right? Okay. I mean, this is kind of fascinating to me, sort of simultaneously really interesting, sort of a bit terrifying, the thought of doing it. For people who are not aware of it, just describe a little bit what it is. And
so basically what Sebastian or Joachim do, Speedy J, is they put together a stage with like 3 to 5 people to create a night of improvised music, which mostly goes from kind of ambient in the beginning to, with Sebastian, you always go back to ambient. With Jochen, I don't think so, because straight into sort of techno. And what's happening is that, like, like there's a certain trust between the people that are invited, and I think it's always interesting to have a little bit of different styles in there, and that's what both Jochen and Sebastian are trying to invite. And you play for 6 to 8 hours live, improvise, and it's quite challenging, but it's also very inspiring at the same time. And you have to say it's also okay to step away for like half an hour or something and take a break.
Yep.
That's why you have a few people. So, and in Sebastian's context, it also can be a solo in between. So you say like, hey, can I play half an hour alone? It's also fine. But it never happened. It never happened when I played there, like, because the dynamic is always really nice. And you take breaks, but it's like you always feel like, okay, I have to come back and add something. But it sounds like chaotic, but I think everybody's really, like, in that environment, everybody's really careful and like listening. That's what playing together with other people means. Actually, you have to look and listen, or not look maybe, but listen at least. Yeah. And try to add not too much. And when I look at myself, which is a bit of my thing, I guess when I play live, I'm trying to have these kind of like sensational moments rather than like a very long loop. Yep. So it's fun when I play with. I remember with the store event I played in. I had this, like, there was with Sam Barker and Jacko and Sebastian, Jochen, and me. And we had this super nice loop going on, and I felt like, okay, everybody's like holding back something. So I was like waiting, like who's gonna smash it now?
Right,
but then nobody did. So can I? So it was really fun. And then I felt almost bad doing it, But
okay,
it's okay at the end. I think it was like the other funny thing I have to say about this night was. So Jochen was kind of like the kick drum master. He had this 909, like tuned and pitched, blah, blah, blah. And he also, like, he has a mixing desk where he's like, like...
Yeah, he's sort of the master of ceremonies,
he's the master.
isn't it?
Same as Sebastian, actually, also. Yeah. So it's not doing a lot, but like sometimes they loop things or like, like take the volume a bit down because it's too high or whatever. And but we had this agreement that he's doing the kick drum. So at one point he was like, I need to go to the bathroom, he told Sebastian, can one of you do the kick drums? You're like, yeah, sure, no problem, of course. And we were like looking at each other, and it's like, I do it. And then I put in my kick drum and like nothing happened. I was like, what is going on? And then I looked at Sebastian, mine doesn't work, you try yours. He started like, not really. Jochen came back, first thing, kick drum in. We were like, what the? And then we turned out like he really tuned his 909 perfectly to this room, to the Paradiso, like whilst our kick drums were just too low.
Right.
Like this modern kind of kick drums. So it was totally like he had the impact, and I've actually loved that for the night. It was so fun.
Right. So do you mean low in terms of frequency?
Yeah. These modern kick drums at the moment, they're like really bass, subby and stuff. Like, but I actually, for myself, I'm going back to put out the 909 again to have this, like,
the
kind of thump, kick. Yeah. But I'm going too nerdy now about this. But the whole thing about it is like it's very surprising what happens on these nights for us as players, but also for the audience, I think. And that's because it's like, it's not planned, so you get these real moments. I think we spoke about it earlier, and that's sometimes rare in days of almost program shows because of visuals and blah blah blah. So absolutely. I think it's the antidote actually to that in a way. Yeah.
Just to get a little bit nerdy for a moment, what do you play off? Like, what do you bring along with you when you go to one of those kind of things? Presumably you bring a laptop or like.
Well, I bring my extended set for these things. Like I have a small set that I mostly play with these days because I just annoyed to wait for luggage, my loose luggage actually.
Yes,
it's a little bit worse these days. So my normal setup is like, you know, a computer, Ableton controller, drum machine, and a little synth I play some extra with. And for this I have like a bigger setup with like you can actually, if you are on YouTube, you can watch it. I break it down at one point, which is like 2 more synths and a little modular and effects and stuff.
Okay.
So I'm a bit more free, and you know, like, but I like the basis is always like my normal live set. I'm just like doing bits, you know, like I take, I don't know, the bass line from a track that is in key with what is playing or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. Yeah. I mean, what was the first one you did?
The first session like this,
Yes.
that was actually in Barcelona with Sebastian. I mean, I'm
Was
used
it scary? Basically, that's what I want to ask.
I was trying to say, like, I did, like, with Henrik, I do the Schwartzman thing for, like, many years already, and we're very used in just being totally free.
Okay,
like,
that's a sort of jam.
Yeah,
like,
always. So as a musician, I'm like, you know, I'm okay with jamming. I'm fine. But you know, Henrik I knew for a long time. Sebastian I met just 2 or 3 years before he started this. Funny enough, because we're very similar in many ways, and we both ask ourselves why we haven't met earlier, but it's how it is. And the thing with Circle of Life is you never know, like, who's you know, who you're playing with.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that night was Sebastian, obviously.
Is that intentional? Does he?
Well, no, at one point you know it, but
Okay.
You don't, you know.
You can't plan super far
You
ahead,
don't know
really.
how those people play.
Right.
So at the first night I played with them was in Barcelona at Nizza at Apollo Club,
Yeah.
which I really love. I just played there. It's
great.
Like, the audience is so good there.
One of the best clubs in Europe for sure.
And there was Colin the Mole.
Oh yeah.
And I never saw him playing live, so he's just like sampling live, you know, like records into MPC and then adding.
Wow,
and I was
really?
like,
Okay.
That's such a I never had that kind of texture basically in a live set, and it's really cool to have that graininess, you know, all the time. And then was Raphael Vogel, Leglov.
Yes.
And I also never, I mean, I know his music, but I never, you know, like played with him. So it's always a bit of surprise how things work together in this just thrown together group. But it was so fun. So it was really, really cool. And I'm really thankful for Sebastian that he's like starting this format, because it's just a super nice experience all the time.
Yeah. The other thing he does, which you're involved in, is retreats.
Yeah.
Which you got one coming up quite soon, haven't you, with him in February? Tell me about that. This is interesting to me as well. I mean, he's we talked when he was on the show a bit about it. It sounds really interesting, actually. So is this the first one you've done coming up? Or
No. I did 2 already. So during COVID, you had to do something, right? And he started this online school, and I never thought about being a teacher, but he asked me if I would do something, and I was like, okay, yeah, why not? Let's try, you know. And I have to say, in some way, that saved me during COVID, I have to say. And I guess it sounds a bit weird, but like when you're like used to have an audience in front of you and getting feedback all the time for what you do, and then nothing because everything is locked, having a feedback from people, even if it's online on a Zoom call, was really it was good, you know. I guess I missed it in a way, even it sounds weird, but and I also figured out I'm actually not too bad at teaching. I guess it's probably because my parents both been teachers, but
right.
I never saw myself as this, you know, as such. And I enjoyed really this, because also you get so much back. Not only like people being happy about learning, but also like telling them their way of producing. So I learn almost as much as the people maybe learn from me. And when COVID was over, it was always clear that I would love to do this in a real environment, you know, like having people around you. So I was happy that he initiated this thing he has this little hotel in south
right.
of Sweden, which is super lovely. It's a super nice place, and like literally behind the house there's like a super big natural park. You can walk for days without meeting anybody in there. So it's very, very good for this kind of event. And it's the third now, and it's always it's very intense when you do it. Because you have basically you have to fight for a little break in between. That
just describe it a little bit. What it entails. What's the typical day?
It's like, I think it's 3 or 4 days, and mostly in the morning. Like Sebastian's wife is doing yoga classes, so you can do a yoga class in the morning. Then there's breakfast, and then we start like till lunch. We do like sessions, and then after lunch we do another couple of sessions, and then there's a dinner, which is all in the area. There's a super nice restaurant just literally down the road, which support us with really nice food, local food. Super lovely couple running that place. And mostly we also have one walk every day in the forest because it's just there.
Yeah, beautiful.
And
in the sessions though, like what's going on?
Wait.
Sorry, you're gonna get that. Okay.
And then the evenings also some more open format things like listening or having open talks or stuff like this. And daytime sessions. So the last 2 years, what we did, Sebastian is really good in talking about the creative process in general and how he works, and learn about creativity. And I'm kind of like breaking down how I work, basically, is either in the studio or live. And but this year it's going to be a bit changing, like, because if I'm how do I put this? I was mostly telling my story, and I guess people been interested in it, but I want to be a bit more, want to open it up to more letting people have tasks to fulfill, and
make it more practical.
Exactly, a bit more less frontal, at the moment, like developing this, but like so you have these. It's like 25 people, I think, 25 to 30. So it's quite intimate, and you can actually ask a lot of questions and be direct. And that's the thing. What I said, like, I have to fight sometimes for a little bit of privacy, because obviously when you're together in a place with this small group, people constantly ask you things. So you're like,
sure.
Don't mind, I have my breakfast on my own, and then we have questions afterwards.
Okay.
But
it's going to be quite intense like that, I imagine.
But the one thing I actually also enjoy is like every time Sebastian and I, and it started in the first course that we did this, in the evenings we have a debate, I would say.
Okay.
And what I think is really interesting is that Sebastian is coming from, like, he kind of, his career probably, Minilogue and all this stuff.
Sure.
And but he kind of managed for himself to get into a place where he's like very free in creating. So he's like, when he creates, he has this procedure with meditation and stuff, and but then it's just about creation, not about any commercial aspect behind it. So he's just like doing a jam basically, and then editing the jam and so on, and whatever happens with it afterwards. And I have to say that I'm still very, even if I have the same process in like creating in the first go, I still, at a point I'm like, okay, how can I sell this? I want this to be, like heard. Where do I put it? Is it right for the market? Blah, blah, blah. And I think for the participants in this course, it's very interesting to see these two ways of,
Sure.
working and releasing and being part of this business, because both work in a way.
Yeah.
Obviously, always saying this in the perspective of being in there for a long time already, so we have this opportunity, of course. But I think it's interesting to have these two aspects, and that's what the debate is about.
I mean, this is really interesting actually, because this is a kind of an area of interest, I think, for the podcast in the coming year. I'm trying to get people to talk about popular culture as art and the degree to which culture and art are different things, the degree to which popular culture in of itself is or can be distinguished from what people talk about as the cultural sector. I mean, the term art and the term culture both carry significant baggage, I think, both in people's minds, but also in, the way the institutions that support them work.
Yeah.
I mean, what you've just described is, Sebastian's very almost self-consciously artistic approach.
Yeah.
And I think yours in the which contains the recognition that we're in the music business and it's a business, and that's an unavoidable part of it. I mean, how do you give me your broad takes on whether? Well, I mean, do you have a definite definition of art per se that you have in your mind? Because so many people have different thoughts on this and different intuitions.
My 8-year-old daughter just said it to me yesterday morning. It's like, Papa, everything is art, right? What can I say?
Okay.
Obviously.
I mean, some people think that.
If you ask me, I admire and I think there's a few people that really do art just for themselves and for the sake of art. But I think even if everybody who creates something wants this to be seen, heard, or felt or whatever, I think you want a reaction for that. I think, at least I'm like this. When I record a song, I enjoy it for myself, but I want
to show someone else, see if they
show
like
somebody
it.
and get a reaction and hope that everybody loves it the same way I do. So, and honestly, I think Sebastian is upon one of the few people who really doesn't need this.
Yeah.
However he did it, but he's like
he's achieved that position.
I admire this, but at the same time, I know I will never. I think I will never get there, which is okay. I don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So and I think because of the fact I want this to be. It doesn't have to be successful, but I want my friends and those who are important to me to listen to it and hopefully love it the same way I do. So I'm trying everything to make this happen, obviously, or to, let's say in a different way, like I have this arm thing, I have this howling thing, but what Frank Wiedemann really means, I don't know yet. I have many different ways I could put this, but I told you earlier that I have all these unfinished songs that could be a solo album, which is not club music. It's like different electronic music, and but it's maybe not that different. It's not that I reinvented the wheel. It's just like a amalgamation of like all I do, probably. And if I would now release this album as such, people would be like, "What's that?" Like. Where's the kick drum,
Yeah, okay.
But obviously I want this to be heard in the same way I put out an ARM record. So, how do I bring the people with me on that journey that I'm doing for myself to recognize that I also do different things? And obviously I'll lose a lot of the club music fans, probably, I don't know, but I guess.
Some of them.
But then I might gain others. But my ultimate goal is like to, not just put it out and see what's happening, but like find the best possible way to put it in the window, that the people see it, hear it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking of. Not like I want to make a lot of money with it. It's not about that, obviously. It's just about putting my art in quotes, because it's a podcast, I can do but like put it into the public as good as I can, so that the people that I think I would love to reach are hearing it. And that's I guess what I think it's the business from my side. It's like that's what I can do. I cannot judge for them. There's like you know it, I know there's so much music coming out every day, and being like heard or seen is like a miracle almost these days.
Sure.
On the one song, but I'm still trying to, like stick out or be heard or whatever, because I want people to listen to this, obviously. So I'm trying my best to do that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that's the kind of personal, I suppose, evaluation and personal, a set of personal goals. I mean, to try and pin you down a little bit further on the term art. I mean, one of the things.
Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I took it to business right away.
No. I mean, I often, one of the things I often say on the show is more the kind of observation that everyone in the music business who makes music is called an artist, right? That's the terminology, and it's to some extent it's all an abbreviation of recording artist, but that's kind of like that. This is the kind of mythology that the business has kind of built up. That like any piece of recorded music that comes out, apparently, according to the music industry, has some kind of artistic value. And to my mind, that's manifestly nonsense, right? There's quite a lot of terrible music which cannot be called art in any objective way. But I mean, whether there isn't such a thing as objective art is, of course, a separate question. Do you consider yourself to be an artist?
That's a catcher. Let me go back to what you just said.
Yeah.
I think so. First of all, I'm not. I think I'm not the one to judge.
Sure.
That I mean, I don't like a lot of music that's out there. I think a lot of it is quite formal and like not outstanding, but like but like I'm 52, so like the young generation needs to judge it,
Sure.
like maybe they love exactly that, and it's fair. Like I think if whoever reaches like a lot of people with what he does, who am I to judge that it's bad? Like I remember like many years ago, there's been, Scorpions, Wind of Change. I hated that song. I still do. But I mean, they've reached millions of people and actually had that wind of change,
right,
in a way,
Of course.
So,
but I suppose this is the question, right? Does that make it art?
But coming back exactly to art, there's the I'd say handwerklich, what's the English word for that? Yes, sheer abilities to play an instrument.
Yeah, technical ability.
The technical things. When you see a painter, like there's these painters who like can incredibly paint like photographic almost, know exactly what to do, and there's the other guys just painting a blue square, and it's going to be sold for millions of dollars. And there's the same question there, like and I see, I see so many super talented musicians who don't touch me at all because they can play something really crazy fast. Does it touch me? No, not always. Like some does, of course. Or I'm like fascinated by it, but it's like I used to, like when I grew up, I used to listen to a lot of jazz, rock, and fusion records, and I have to say, very few of them stayed in my library, basically.
And brilliant musicians playing on those records.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion about like art that's successful is always like it's never somebody who's just like doing one thing, pushing a button, and then it's happening. Like I don't know, Billie Eilish, whatever. They had like a long time before they got recognized where they already been working on stuff. So it's always it's work, at the end, and it takes patience and passion, for it to. And if you, I don't know, learn guitar for like 20 years and at the end it's just like the one sample that makes you famous, then that's all part of the journey, I think. And I think all these people who are like super successful these days, there's probably very few who just been successful because of their management or whatever. It's always like the art they made beforehand that brought them to the point, like Fred again, best example, like he's been producing so much music for other people.
Yeah.
And now he's successful himself. So I think it's always passion, patience, and authenticity. That's for me one of the biggest thing. Actually, also like being authentic, and then whatever you do, coming back, if it's art, in a very on a very high artistic level by playing an instrument really good, or if it's just by hitting that one very emotional chord. I think you can. You know what I'm trying to say. It's like, it's like if it makes a lot of people connecting to it, then it's just like it's good. I
Sure.
think, if it's my taste or not.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, just mindful of time, we've got time for one more. And you absolutely set this question up by using the pushing of the button motion. What do you think about generative AI in music?
Okay,
what do you
of course,
think about Suno? What do you think about the shortcut that is available now to anyone with a Suno account to make a track?
I'm not afraid of it, first of all, because I think it might take a while when everybody's like trying out everything, and like doing, I don't know, music videos, blah, blah, blah. But I think ultimately it will always come to a point where you use AI really as what it should be, a tool to help you doing things, not as a shortcut, but like, I don't know, like, let's say I have 500 gigs of drum sounds and say, hey, I could you sort this into kick drums, snare drums, and then make me a nice Ableton rack and blah, blah, blah. And key, something like that.
Yeah.
That's why I see AI as incredibly powerful and helpful. The same was like when, it's the same as would you come back from a place where you had to rehearse with a band for like months and then have 2 very expensive days in the studio to record on tape, which is replaced now by Pro Tools or whatever, Ableton. And is it bad? No. I think it's good. It's all about how you use it. Everybody was afraid of Pro Tools killing the industry, but it didn't, it just changed it. So
it killed some things, but I suppose
but it came back, like I just yesterday I saw like this video of, what's it called, Adrian something, Non-Linear Labs or Linear Labs in New York, LA studio. They recorded this old couple from Brazil, Antonio Carlos and I don't know, all tape, Brazilian music, and you hear it and you're just like, so it's like, oof, that touches me so much. But at the same time, I think I'm like, I'm old enough to see this, and I'm like, whenever you have like maybe only avatars playing on a stage in the next couple of years, because all these 18-year-olds want to have something super superficial.
Yeah, that's already happening, by the way. But carry on.
Yeah, but like that's what it is. But I'm super sure, like having like growing up with grunge, this moment will always come back.
Sure.
Like at one point, people are just have enough of this artificial things and go back to some sweat and I don't know when it's coming back, but I'm sure it's coming. Oh, it's never gone. I think it's always there. Like like it's maybe in a smaller scale, and maybe people don't hear it all the time. But like you hear, you go to. I saw the Radiohead show here, in Berlin, and yes, it was way too big for me, to be honest. But like seeing the people singing with them, the songs. Even Tom York was quite surprised. I think he was really. You saw him on the stage. He was like really thankful, and
right.
I mean,
yeah.
That's why I mean, yes, it will definitely change the industry, and I hope it's not gonna change how we live too much. I mean, it will, but I always like my general intention or my general credo, is that an English word too?
Yeah, sure.
When I wake up in the morning, it's like I always believe in mankind in a way, and I always believe in the good at the end. Otherwise I could kill myself right away, right? If I would believe all bullshit is happening at the moment in the world. So I still think this is just part of the story of humanity and grows, and so is AI part of it. And even if we end up being just led by machines, then maybe it's for good reasons, because we just couldn't make it ourselves.
Yeah, right. Well, there's reason, I think, in politics at the moment to suggest that we need a little bit of help at the very least.
Yeah.
But anyway, Frank, thanks so much for coming on, man. This has been great.
Thank you. It was a nice chat. Really appreciated it.
Music, not diving, with Scuba.